Hello, everyone. Today, we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Jason Galamaga, who is the president of Delta Tau Management Group. Jason, how are you doing today?
Very well, thanks, Harris. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you on. So excited to dive into the conversation, talk all things business, strategy, goals, and hopefully we can have a really good conversation. So, without further ado, shall we make a start, Jason?
Let's do it.
Amazing. Perfect. So, Jason, could you take us to the very beginning of your journey, where it all got started, perhaps the early stages of your career, and tell us
Sure.
a little bit about the journey, getting to the position that you're on today, and a little bit more about who you are and what you do for the people that don't really know.
Sure. Be happy to. So, ironically, I started off with zero business acumen, zero business knowledge. My original degree is in French horn from the University of Toronto. I did a bachelor and master of performance, which was going to become an orchestral or concert player. Discovered shortly after that I probably had 10 or 15 more years to put in dues, and there was rent to pay. Apartments are expensive in Toronto where I live, and they were even back then. So I went to work for a company that manufactured signs, displays, fairly large, they did a significant amount of play in the banking industry, wayfinding for retail and things like that. So I started basically at the ground there, running a machine, and worked my way through the various operations. Eventually, they discovered I had some aptitude for project management and estimating, etc. So I basically got pretty good at that. And I worked my way up, or, eventually did my MBA sort of 10 years into that role and started taking over more of the operations management side of the business, eventually becoming, after I got my CPA, which is the accounting designation here in North America, eventually took over as their finance person, winding up doing a turn as the president. And then I decided, it had been 20 years, maybe I should see what's out there. I sold insurance and financial products for a while, did financial planning and consulting there for business owners. Left that, built a book, found it kind of dull because you spend a lot of time selling insurance and financial products, and it was less about the planning, which is what interested me, and the strategy. So I went back and I served as finance director, controller for a couple of an engineering firm, an architecture firm, which we helped sell to major multinationals. And pretty much after that, I said, I think I have enough experience to actually start helping other small and medium businesses. So I formed Delta Tau, DTMG, to do exactly that, to try to give a level of experience, a level of theory, that small business owners don't have access to. Like I won't do advertising for the large consultancies. We know who they all are, but
Yeah.
they don't get out of bed for less than $1 million of fees. And the average small to medium business is not going to be able to afford an engagement, and they don't
Yeah.
really need that at that stage. So that's kind of, over the last 20, 25 years, how I've decided it's time to start helping, particularly in Canada. I don't know how it is in the rest of the world, but in Canada, the statistics are astounding. It's like 95% of the economic output in our country is done by small businesses. Excuse me. So, it's a very underserviced area. And as I'm sure you're aware, they sometimes don't know what they need, and they sometimes don't understand the gaps that need to be filled.
Absolutely. No, amazing, Jason. Now, part of that journey, right? Which part of the journey do you perhaps look back on and you feel like you learned the most? Where do you think you leveled up the most and kind of your mindset shifted to become sort of the entrepreneur business owner you are? And if you had to
Yeah,
pinpoint a challenge that you went through that allowed you to level up to be able to, have the right mindset you need to do well.
absolutely. I'll be honest with you. It was sitting in a variety of meetings after we had been purchased by one of the firms that I helped to sell. We were doing the post-merger integration and sitting through a bunch of meetings, listening to people try to make plans, but it was like watching people fumbling around in the dark. They didn't have any frameworks. They didn't understand. They just like, well, let's go make money. The idea of strategically planning what the next 3 to 5 years is going to be, and then trying to get some rudimentary costing out of it, and what were the resources we were going to need. Some stuff that I would consider basic. And this is
Yeah.
from publicly traded companies
Wow.
and they didn't have a clue. Like they were bringing spreadsheets in to run our business, and we're like, this is astonishing to me. You don't know anything. And I was sitting at meetings watching people fumbling, ideas happening, but no action plan, no accountabilities. And that was the aha moment where I said, even these really successful firms that have private equity and institutional investors, they're doing it by the seat of their pants. And
Mm,
you throw a situation like what's happening in the United States with the governance down there and the economic situation, people, you need something, a plan that you're going to hold on to so that you've got some roadmap of where you want to go, even if the environment changes.
absolutely. Very well said. And talking about environment, yeah, but it'd be great to talk about, market trends and shifts and the environment, how it's always changing. So if you had to perhaps talk about what the industry, the market, looks like at the minute, what are some trends that you've seen or perhaps have seen in the past, and how do you think they're gonna pan out? And then how can business owners navigate these changes and avoid themselves getting caught out and get
It,
stuck
it's a
in a rut?
Yeah, it's a really interesting problem. A lot of thought leaders are discussing this, what you should do. And you can, Google is filled with tips and tricks. And the reality is, I think in the world, we are in one of the most tumultuous times, certainly in my lifetime. Like we've seen recessions in 81 and 91, the tech bubble bursting,
Yep.
and those all kind of, yeah, we get the stock markets are volatile. And the reality is, for the average business owner, I advise them to not look at the stock market too much, quite
Got it.
frankly,
Got it.
because they're not heavily involved unless you're planning on doing an IPO or whatever. Like you just wind up scaring yourself. The biggest thing that I can suggest is you know, get back to the basics. What made your business successful? Doing that, and what do you need to do? There's some basic core things. Focus on sales. Make sure you're not leaving anything on the table, that you're not leaving where you're following up all your proposals, you're talking to your clients, because if you're not, your competitor is, because they might be starving and you might just be not having steak dinner. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so they're hitting on your clients. Focus on your fundamentals. It's never a bad time to attempt to achieve operational excellence, but it's especially important when you have volatility. It's especially important when you're not sure if there's going to be some weird tariff on your exact good. You need to make sure that you're not leaving cost out there, especially the hidden costs. I focus a lot in my practice on not the things that you pay for directly. It's the hidden costs, like a bad system design, having multiple people having to do the same task because you don't have a centralized system. Or my personal mission in life is to put Microsoft Excel out of business if I
Mhm.
can, because so many people are running their businesses and they're spending hours and hours to generate a monthly report that, with you know how it is with the current software systems out there. Some of
Yeah,
them are like $20 bucks a user a month. We're talking
absolutely.
like anybody can afford a decent CRM, a decent ERP, so that they don't having to compile hours and hours of reports. They could be doing something more valuable, like, I don't know, calling on clients and seeing what do your clients need. So
Absolutely.
those would be the things that, and unfortunately, it makes really good talking points when times are tough and people want to come talk to you. But really, I'd say that I consult my business owners and I advise them, do this all the time, constantly be reviewing, what's out on the horizon? What are the labor markets doing? Like, I don't know how it is where you're living, but in Canada, we have a very serious shortage,
Similar.
and that's right across the board. That, you want great salespeople. Well, those are hard to find in the first place. You want excellent consultants who can think creatively, but then also be compliant with your rules. It's, finding the right
Yeah.
skill sets, establishing the right roles for your business so that you don't have to keep inventing new roles or changing people's roles. You have a basic framework of role accountability, and then you don't have to every time there's a little bump in the economy or one of your product offerings isn't doing as well, you suddenly have to do a major strategic shift of your whole business. That's kind of like get the fundamentals right to sort of bottom line it.
Absolutely amazing. Very well said, Jason. Thank you for that. Now, I guess I trend I wanted to get your thoughts on now. It's something obviously that's blown up last 10, 15 years and only going to get even bigger. And that's power of social media, right? Social media, online presence, being seen, being heard, where perhaps more than a few years ago, that wasn't really the case. So how important has social media been to your success? And what are some ways that you're utilizing social media, if at all? And again,
Yep.
in your opinion, how can people navigate the minefield of social media to make sure that they're executing and it's actually productive rather than wasted time?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I'll be honest, despite the gray hair, I'm a babe in the woods when it comes to this. Just recently, like I've always known about LinkedIn. I go on Facebook and I look at memes and I
Mm.
hang out with friends on Facebook. But it's
Yep.
just recently in the last year or so that I've realized, for example, LinkedIn, what a powerful tool it can be to find people like you and I connected on LinkedIn. And that's how this
Absolutely.
conversation came about. So I've been using LinkedIn as one of my major sources to develop leads. There is a person I suggest, his name's Jason Osborne, and I suggest that anybody who wants to get good at LinkedIn, go look up him. He has a course that's for free, teach you how to reach out to people without sounding salesy, because that's death in this business. On social media, if you're like, hey, I'm Jason and I provide management consulting. Do you want to have a meeting? That's an instant, forget it, I don't want to talk to you. So there's a method that we're all now learning. Some are better, some are worse. Make sure you have your LinkedIn page, especially if you do B2B work. Your page had better be spot on. And if you do B2C, your Facebook, your Spotify, your YouTube, all of those things are becoming very vital channels. The trend that I'm seeing, and the hardest part, is how do
Yep.
you cut through the noise? Particularly in my
Mm.
business, and I'm sure yours, management consulting, business consulting. How do you cut through the noise of everything? Because there's these days a consultant for everything. There's an HR specialist for HR specialists in consulting. So that's what I think is the next trend, is it's more than just paying for Google ads. It's more than LinkedIn ads. It's how do
Absolutely.
you get your message out to enough people quickly enough? Because most of us, we're not selling snake oil. We're selling real solutions. We're looking, yeah, someone might pay us $5,000, $50,000, $500,000. That would be a heck of an engagement. My agenda is whatever you spend with me, and I'm sure you're similar, there's a return of investment. I'm expecting them to pay for it within a year or two. So
Absolutely.
that's, and then, as I remind them, so if you pay me $100,000, let's say it was a nice big engagement, $100,000, I'm expecting that in year two, you're going to make that back. And by the way, as long as your business doesn't fundamentally change and you can keep doing that, you get the benefit of that $100,000 of efficiency and savings year after year after year.
Absolutely.
So after 10 years, assuming all things being equal, you've made $1 million and you've paid me $100,000 that you otherwise wouldn't have. To me, that's pretty compelling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can even scale beyond that as well. Like,
Yes.
all things remain equal. Well, what's to say you can't exponentially add components and scale up even more? That's
Well,
where the
I'll be
real
honest with you,
expertise.
that goes against my mission. My mission is I'll take a business as far as post IPO,
Yep.
post merger with private equity, and then I don't want to be involved. I know I could make piles of money
Got
helping
it.
those sorts of people, but I'm here because I want to be able to help, not necessarily the little guy, because in Canada, we still consider them small, medium business if there are 200 employees.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
that's still a sizable business. A 200 person business can be as complicated as a 2,000 person
Absolutely.
business. But I don't, they're very well serviced. The publicly traded people, they've got, in many cases their own strategy departments, their own operating departments. But no, that's just me. Yes, I could scale my business. I could scale what we do. Of course, I could bring a team in and I could do a multinational billion-dollar company, but that's not what I'm about personally.
Got it.
those guys can have it. I want to help the person who's struggling to make payroll this week and
Mm.
struggling, they're working 60 hours a week because they don't know how to delegate, they don't know how to set up the right roles, and their family doesn't remember what they look like. That's kind of my mission because part of my journey was that working those 60, 70-hour weeks, missing some of the kids' stuff that I didn't want to. Certainly, vacations. Like I remember there was one job where I was lucky enough to have 5 weeks of vacation, which here is a lot. I think I took
Wow.
two, two for the whole time I was there per year. I never
Wow.
even came close to using it, and the family suffered for that. I want business owners who are who have built something great to be able to succeed and enjoy their success. It's not there. You can't take it with you.
Absolutely. That's amazing. That's amazing, Jason. So now if we can come on more on the business side of things, right? Talk all things business and deep dive. What are some areas of the business that perhaps are going really, really well and you're most proud of? Could be sales, marketing, operations, client delivery. And what are some areas perhaps you're having the most challenges when it comes to, the business? And if we
And
can
you're talking about my business, not my
yeah,
clients'
in
businesses.
particular, yeah,
Sure.
you and
Yep.
perhaps a bit of a deep dive of exactly, all things business and, in detail about what we mentioned at the beginning about strategy, finance, and all things.
Yep.
So, what's your overall take on that, Jason?
Well, I'd say that for me in my business, what I'm finding is we're neighbors. We're very close neighbors with the US, and
Yeah,
they're not treating us very nicely these days. And so that's causing a lot of businesses to pause what they want to do, improvement plans, even though they shouldn't be. This is exactly when businesses should be doing it. A lot of them they're a little sluggish to want to take a meeting. They're a little slow to want to sit down and to even acknowledge, like I've been finding. So when I started I do a LinkedIn reach out program. So every day or every week, I do X number of connection to connect attempts,
yeah,
and I track those metrics.
yeah,
And so that's one of the things that for someone who's having a sales problem, I always say, hey, track your metrics, document your sales process, track what you're doing so that hey, is this just a blip in the market or can I change something? So that
absolutely.
that would be the first thing, the first problem that I'm noticing is it used to be if I made 50 connection requests, I would get 12 to 15 connection requests back the same day. Now, if I make 50, I'm maybe getting 8 or 9. So it means
Mm,
that people are, and I'm doing the same process. It's not like I've changed anything. So I'm noticing that people are just a little hesitant. So that would be the biggest challenge for my business right now is getting people to actually want to talk to me because I think unfortunately there's a lot of people who've been burned by in our industry
yeah,
with people who say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to help you," and then they give you a report and say, "Okay, bye," and they don't actually fix anything because the fact is that's the easy part is figuring out what's wrong. It's now going with the owner and you have some person who's a cog in the wheel who's been working there for 15 years and making them want to buy in to, hey, I want you to learn this new system. I want you to learn this new way of doing it. It's going to suck for 3 months, 4 months while we learn it. And it's going to be harder. But then at the 6 month mark, you're going to be doing 4 times the amount of output. And that's a hard thing to get people to want to buy into that. But I'm pretty good at that. Once we get in, we normally identify the people that are going to be we'll call them agents of change or our change ambassadors. And we identify the people who have got a lot of social power, we'll call it, or social loyalty. People follow them effectively. And those are the people that we try to put in as our ambassadors. So
amazing.
that would be the biggest success I've seen is being able to judge, okay, who's going to actually do this? Being able to judge the projects that are going to be able to go through successfully versus the ones that you can tell they're just going to die at the proposal stage.
Absolutely. No, very well said. Now, I guess if we can look towards the future now, because I'm sure Jason, yourself personally and business-wise, you've probably got some really big goals, some targets on the whiteboard that
Yep.
you're looking to achieve. So, what does the future really look like for yourself in the business? If we're talking maybe next 6 to 12 months, and maybe even beyond, if you're looking back on things 10, 20 years from now, what do you want to
Yep.
feel most proud of that you achieved?
Well, I never look at 10 to 20 years. My time frame for planning, this is the same with my clients. I want you to look 3 to 5 years in the future. I want you to vision for that.
Yep.
20 years, it's in 20 years, I want to be, living somewhere warm. But that doesn't really mean anything. How do I accomplish that? Well,
Absolutely.
it's 3 to 5 years. So 6 to 12 months. My hope is to have grown my business by approximately 30%. So
Okay.
effectively, I've got two major anchor clients right now and about a dozen little guys who are coming on board. I want to sort of have 5 to 6 anchor clients in the next year. And those are the ones that you can send a consultant out and they're steadily working and
Yep.
helping that client. And then, sort of double the business size in about a year type of
Got it.
thing. And 5 years from now, well, I actually am very good at 5 year plans. So it's not a matter of it'll be whether it takes 3 years or 5 years. So we'll have 50 people on staff by that point. And my goal is to keep overhead so that we don't have a bunch of marketing and administration that basically I've always embraced the seller doer model. It's something that I learned from a company called PSMJ here. They do architecture and engineering type consulting. And you have project managers. So the consultant actually is farming for the next project. So it's not just we have salespeople and they go and sell the client on the job, and then the consultant goes in and does their work because we find that doesn't work. But if
Yep.
you have somebody who's actually helped the client, they speak with credibility. So that's sort of our vision, is to have 50 consultants on staff in about 5 years who are able to do that sort of work. And like any consultancy, there's opportunities for growth. Eventually, people become principals of the consultancy. That's how we do it. We tend to do it over in North America. I'm following kind of the architecture, the law, business model, and that's how a lot of consultants work. You start off grinding it out as a financial analyst, work your way up into an associate type consultant role or assistant, then you're a senior consultant. And then if you can bring clients in and people want you to lead their teams, then you start looking at possibly becoming a principal of the firm.
Amazing. And I guess personally, right, but I guess business aside, where do you stand with personal goals and sort of, where you want to be in, I guess, 3, 5 years time?
Well, I think that's when you own your own business, that kind of is your personal goals. I'm going strong. I actually, I have to stop myself from working beyond a certain number of hours. And the thing is, I may have mentioned before this call at some point, we bought a sailboat, my wife and I, and so it forces me, if I want any daylight hours, I have to get off the computer and we go sailing. Like, and I'd like to get a bigger boat so that we can do longer trips type of thing.
Amazing, amazing. And I guess, Jason, with that, what is the biggest piece of advice you'd like to give to people listening, or perhaps somebody starting off where you were when you started your journey, or perhaps the biggest lesson you've learned the hard way that you want to share with people that are listening?
Yeah, that's a toughie. Let me think about that for a second. I'd say
Yeah,
the biggest lesson is so let's take somebody like just starting off and saying, "Hey, I've got this really great idea. How do I get it off the ground? How do I get people to talk to me?" Don't give up. It's going to take twice as long, it's going to be twice as hard, and it'll be 4 times to 5 times as rewarding once it actually works. You're going to fumble. Like we all fumble. And so you need enough throughput of conversations with people to, when you have that real flop of a meeting or that real flop of a call, you can shake it off because why? In 15 minutes, you have your next call. And that's the hard part, is there's this tendency to want to say, oh my God, I really am not very good at this. And what am I doing here? Because you just have a bad day, or you have a client who's having a personal problem and they're maybe being a little rude to you, or it's just not working. And be like a doctor. You give advice. A lot of people may not take it, but they have a room full of patients out there. Like, okay, I'm telling you, eat better, exercise more, don't smoke. And I'll tell you that again in 6 months or a year when you're here, but you don't want to take my advice. Okay, next patient, please.
absolutely, absolutely. Very well said. Well, so with that, Jason, massive thank you for your time today on the podcast. I really enjoyed myself and had an amazing
Me too.
conversation, and I hope you have, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well. But massive thank you for the insights, the value, and the level of detail you've gone through. So, is there any closing comments or final thoughts you may have for people listening, team members, clients or anybody perhaps following you on social media? Any closing comments or thoughts you might have?
Oh, no, I hadn't prepared anything. No, I think we've kind of covered it. This is me, this is you, this is our business, and I'm excited to have had the opportunity to chat with you.
Amazing. Jason, thank you very much. And thanks to everyone who tuned in today. We'll catch you on next time. Bye-bye.